Okay, we're already recording. Hi, everybody. Uh, what an amazing summit it has been. 4 weeks entirely dedicated to the training arm of the industry. And I was personally loving it. Being from an L&D background and being driven by the role of data and value, it was a wonderful session. It was a lot of learning for myself and a humbling and excellent experience to have had the opportunity to host some of the best in the industry. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed it as well. Big thank you to the audience that has been part of the entire journey.
In fact, Sakshi, it was I think, wonderful session. In fact, what comments we got and the response we received, and though I'm from non-corporate background, but it was a good learning experiences. The way all the panelists shared their experience, shared their knowledge, it was amazing. And just wanted to check up why you decided to hold this L&D summit at all.
So, well, one, like I mentioned, L&D is very close to my heart, given that last 3 years I've been in the field and education technology has been on the rise, something that I have been intrigued with throughout. The idea was definitely to bring together a group of thought leaders in the field of L&D, right, learning and development, to trade innovative ideas specifically with the changing dynamism for the training arm today. We are currently at a junction where L&D is turning from just another support function to something that is an enabler of strategic business goals. It's not that you just conduct a training and then you never know what happened after that. The entire dynamism is changing. The role of a trainer is changing. What was 10 years ago to what we require today. And that was definitely of big interest. So additionally, the curveball that COVID has thrown in front of organizations, uh, which the training teams have been attempting to firefight, it definitely turned this summit into the need of the hour more than ever before.
Yeah, okay, this is wonderful. In fact, now I just thought that why did you decide to hold this summit for 4 weeks?
Oh, that's a very interesting question.
I mean, it could have been say 6 panelists in one go or the whole day session. So, what was the? I mean, it was a major decision to keep the audience engaged.
Yeah, so if we take the times before COVID hit us, right, we used to have summits or conclaves which were a whole day running, because you had Saturday dedicated. You would make time as a participant or as an audience and visit a physical place where there would be a lot of networking. You would connect with different people who have a similar interest, but that's entirely changed. We could have still held it on one single day, let's say do back-to-back sessions, but with work spilling over, the boundaries being melted, that kind of time for a person to take out of their schedule now is very difficult, right? It's difficult to say, hey, 5 hours, 6 hours, I'm going to dedicate to a particular conclave or summit, and on a digital platform. It's not equally engaging as it was. The networking aspect is kind of out the window. So we decided to break it down.
Yeah, I think plus I think another reason could have been the attention span. I mean, you
Yes.
can't keep people glued to the laptop or the mobile whole day for this webinar or discussion. So that was another advantage of breaking it over 4 weeks. And the way we saw the people kept coming back, they kept joining in. It showed the interest of the people, which was reflected during the sessions.
No,
Okay,
you're
so basically,
absolutely right when you say the attention span aspect, right? Now, when you have a physical summit at a physical space, there is a very different element to it. It's not just a conversation or a seminar that's happening. There is peer
yes,
learning. There are other
yes,
people that you meet. There are stalls that you explore, but that doesn't
yes.
happen on a digital platform anymore. So yeah, it definitely made more sense to distribute it.
Yeah, yeah. And there in between, people go out and come in, they get freshen up and talk to what you said. Other people from industry and others, and peer learning is also there besides the experience being shared by the speakers. And then one more thing I just wanted to check up, like if you were to highlight the takeaways over these 4 weeks,
Hmm.
what would those be?
Okay, so there was a lot to learn. I don't know if I will be able to give a gist of the whole thing. And I would recommend anyone who's watching this to go and check out the videos, right? But let's say if I were to categorize it into few areas, one would be the use of technology. That was a big discussion point in each session that we had. We had different themes, and every theme, the tech part definitely fit in seamlessly. So we spoke about the use of new age tech to increase reach, and at the same time, not compromise on engagement or the social context of training. The second aspect that we learned or we discussed extensively was the growing importance of data. Because like I said, we're at a junction where L&D as a function is changing from a mere support group to something that's an enabler, right? And the role of data or establishing the value that L&D projects add plays a big role in it. The third area that we covered or we discussed was the co-ownership of learning initiatives. So far in the Indian context, it's been a lot of directed learning where I am told or I am fed the kind of training that I should acquire, right? Or the skill that I should acquire. But now it's shifting towards co-ownership of learning initiatives, which should be by the training arm, proactively identifying the training need, by the business heads to make sure that the implementation is happening, and by the learners to own their own learning, right? It can't be pushed or fed to learners anymore, especially because they're all adults. It has to be owned by the learners themselves. There are two more aspects. So one is the changing dynamism and the role of trainers. What was expected out of a trainer or faculty, a couple of years ago, and what is expected today out of the training department are very different.
Yeah.
So like I spoke about the role. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. One thing I realized was very good was that it is becoming gradually user driven. I mean, what does a individual wants to be trained? Because at times he might be knowing something, but we are still, as per the training program, we are putting it down his throat, and he needs to understand and attend the lecture and attend the sessions. Second thing, which during the discussions I noticed was very, very important aspect was ROI.
Yes.
I mean, if you could explain on that ROI.
Definitely. So we spoke a little bit about the data aspect of it, right? The whole idea of capturing and effectively using data is to understand the return on investment. If I were to elaborate ROI, the return on training investment that an initiative or a learning initiative brings. Every organization puts in money, right? It is considered a cost center today. But what is the value that you drive out of it is extremely important for L&D to stay relevant in the coming times.
Yes.
If you cannot measure the value that is being driven, it's very difficult for one to, I'm missing the word over here, but to continue to see the importance of a learning training arm.
Yeah, because L&D may not deliver immediate results. The results may not be seen immediately. Okay, in this quarter we made so much of profit. In this quarter we made so much of increase in sales, and market share has increased so much. That will not be seen directly, but it has a tremendous indirect effect, which starts showing results after a year or so as the people understand. And yes, you're right. And then one more thing I just wanted to check up, like you brought out about the new age technology, use of new age technology. So could you just elaborate on that? How does that play a major role in L&D?
Okay, so I'm going to highlight a few very interesting things that were brought out by our panel members across the 4 weeks, right? One very interesting concept or model that Mr. Manjeet had mentioned from India Infoline, right, was the Netflix model. And that was something that really piqued my interest, and I'm sure the audience interest as well. The reason that he spoke of the Netflix model or IIFL has implemented it is because of the familiarity. So there are multiple considerations you take into account when you're choosing a technology or a platform for your L&D initiatives, right? One is the access of it, one is the familiarity of the user interface, so that the adoption rates are higher by the learners. If I'm a learner and you give me a platform that I don't know how to navigate, I will not be able to adopt it very easily. There will be like a big transition to it, right?
Yeah, it should be
So
user friendly, basically.
exactly. So Netflix model took care of that. You have the content which is put under different categories. It's easy to search for it. It's easy to share that with your co-workers, your peer group, which brings in the social context as well. So you're using technology without missing out on the social or the community context of learning. So that was very interesting. The second area was bite-sized modules. Like you spoke about the attention span, right? The same thing
Yes,
happens with the learner. We can't listen to a speech or a seminar for 1 hour anymore. So
absolutely.
15 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that's picking up and making it accessible on mobiles or tabs as we go along. So
Yeah.
these are very important areas that came out on the tech front. But do check out the videos for more deets.
Yeah, I mean, there are many other things which came up, and
Exactly.
in fact, one more thing I realized was the old time things still remain very, very relevant, like storytelling, like the concept of other direct teaching, and like in colleges, also schools, also they have started the guidance classes on weekends or one day in a week. Now they've started personal guidance classes. Why the online things remain, but once a while, that personal guidance is also very, very important because the personality of the speaker and direct question answers and peer learning are also very, very relevant. So, but
Absolutely.
I had really enjoyed the sessions personally, and you whatever you want to say, you can say that.
Yeah. So there are a lot of different aspects that we spoke about, right? We've already elaborated on the tech front, but I think I would also dive a little deeper on the trainer competency bit over here.
Yes, yes.
Um, Now, what we had a couple of years earlier to what we require today has changed drastically. We spoke about the role of data now, or the need to, measure return on investment for L&D, which means your L&D arm has to be equipped to understand data, which was not a
Oh,
requirement earlier. At
yes.
one point in time, it was only, hey, you should know how to run a session, you should know how to present, you should have public speaking skills, maybe a bit of training need identification, but that also did not require too much data at that point of time. But that entire story has changed today. So a trainer needs to understand how data works, or the interpretation of data at least, right? You can use a data analyst from the organization or have one for the L&D support function itself. Another area is storytelling that you identified over here, right? Uh, Especially with everything moving digital, now we have virtual instructor-led trainings. It's not in class anymore. So in class, what we used to do was we would have sessions and then we would engage the audience with activities, because you can't have a very long instructor-led session. So do a quick concept, cover it theoretically, and then look at the application via activities. But you can't do those activities on a digital platform now. So your storytelling has become a very, very important area that a trainer needs to
Yes.
have,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
right? You need to be tech savvy because you're using multiple digital platforms today. And at any organization, it's not one platform anymore. So you'll be using one platform to engage for an instructor-led, another one to conduct activities, a third one to have break rooms. It's a crazy gamut of applications, and one needs to be tech savvy to be able to survive.
I think during this COVID-19, the L&D branch or L&D segment has become very, very dynamic, and they have to evolve themselves to remain relevant and to continue to impart knowledge to the people. Yeah, I think this is what I felt, and I really enjoyed sessions by each one of them because they were from such diverse field. There's a lot to learn, lot to understand, whether it was a hotel industry or retail chain or Swiggy or consultant or financial segment. It was for me personally, and what I saw the audience, it was a great learning, and the response was very, very good. Yes,
It was.
Sakshi.
It was very. I would use the term again, but humbling to see the kind of response we got. And there were people who kept coming back for each session.
Yeah.
And at an early stage like ours, that's a big motivating factor. But before we kind of drop off, I do want to highlight two more things because it might not be feasible for everyone to go back to the videos, right? One was the role of identifying the end goal for your training initiatives.
Yes.
So the performance goals, we usually start off with that when we're doing training needs identification. You start with performance goals, but you eventually, it kind of fades off and you start focusing on the intermediate goals. So this is for all the trainers out there. While you keep all the considerations in mind in terms of the skill set that's required, in terms of making sure that you have the right data set and so on, it's important for us to keep our eyes on the goalpost, right? Which
Yeah.
means, let's say, for example, if you're looking at improving customer service, your end goal has to be improved CSAT scores or customer satisfaction scores. It might come down to saying, hey, you need to improve empathy, you need to improve cultural intelligence, you need to improve communication skills, but these are parts of it. You can't, or we can't rather, being part of the L&D fraternity, we can't focus on intermediate goals. At the end of it, the value is driven by improved CSAT. So it's important to keep that in mind till the end of the training project, right? So I think that's pretty much all. That's what I would end with. That those were some of the key learnings that we had from the sessions.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I think I'll recommend each one to go through the videos once again, or those who have not seen it. It is available on YouTube as well as on Facebook page.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye. Jai Hind. Yeah.